Hello and welcome to All in Motion. I am your host, Jake. This is episode 21, part 1, Life of a Combat Medic. First, I just want to take the time to thank my guest for being so patient. Him and I have been talking for over a year and on the phone, of course. He served with me and what this episode is about in Afghanistan. So, sir, I just want to thank you and uh, your family for being patient. Number one, and thank you all for taking the time to tune in and listen. Um, I really do believe that good things and amazing things come to those who are patient. Even though I've struggled personally with that, being patient my whole life. The reason why I say that this episode takes place 14 years ago, um, and excuse me, to God Valley, Capisa Province, and a fire base called Morales Frazier. I was there at the time, 2007. I had really some not so good things going on. I had a business that wasn't working out. I had some other issues, some personal things going on. This mission came up. Excuse me, I went on it, and it was by far the most challenging, most dangerous, and pushed me uh, by far out of all even, compared to for my deployments in Iraq. Not that they were not difficult, but this was just way different. And I believe the gentleman I was there with would agree. So this is a 3-part episode. The reason why we haven't done one in a while. This I made a decision. There was just so much that came out, and the stories. And for those who listen, I get it. 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You might, if you're not interested in a podcast, but excuse me, I do promise you that it's well worth it. And please share it with others. And please send us feedback. It's allinmotionpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to get feedback or questions or certain things that you'd like to hear. Part 2 will be published today, 8/13. Part 3 will be published tomorrow, 8/14. And like I said, it's all powerful, and we didn't want to give you it all in 2 hours because that just wouldn't be fair. And we want you all to come back for more. Like I said, all the episodes are really special. This one's just really special for me because I was in Tagava Valley, Capisa Province, Morales Frazier, beginning 2008, and with the gentleman that's interviewed that he speaks about. And I just want to say again, thank you, man, because it's really, really awesome. I shared a little bit in this interview. And just want to say, the guys that got injured from PA and the server from Pennsylvania, shout out to you all. Thank you all for, listening in and being who you are. And, everybody else in the world that served, and those that unfortunately never came home, God rest your soul. And then obviously for the guys at Pennsylvania and the guys the medics that were attached and other attachments, thank you for all your service. But definitely just want to shout out. And he's unfortunately not here with us anymore. Is Marine Captain Melton that passed away while we were at our fire base as we were rotating out back to Bagram. So again, thank you, everybody. Please let me know what you all think. I can't wait. This is very exciting. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Doc Van Tuyl. The audience know before you get into introducing you, how you and I know each other.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Army veteran, doc, medic, and I was with the 101st, and I got deployed to Afghanistan. And there was a group of guys down the road from the base I was at that needed some help, and so I got thrown in the mix with a bunch of Pennsylvania Army National Guard folks. And you so happen to be one of those Pennsylvania National Guard folks, and that's how we met up at good old Morales Frazier out in Tagab
Yeah.
Valley in Afghanistan.
And I think, what I did today, I hope you appreciate that. And then I have some posts that we'll do as well. I captured I really thought about it, and I hope you don't mind. I stole it from your Facebook, the picture of the tower at
Oh, I
Morales
dig
Fraser.
it because it perfectly shows the valley, and if you look in the bottom of the picture, you can see what our showers were, how we built showers for ourselves. And you can see off to the right our little smoke shack area where we refilled our ammo and hung out and smoked. And one of the guys, we'd cut hair out there, and it was just the all around hangout spot.
You brought up a question actually right now, but before we get into that, it's actually a really good one I just thought about for the audience to understand. You want to just give a little bit about, why you joined the Army, why you want to become a medic, just things like that before we really get into it?
For sure, yeah, it's a pretty cool little story, but I'll keep it short and sweet. So basically, I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I have family that's still this day in Long Island, New York, which is pretty close to New York City. Um, and so let's see, to keep this story short and sweet, I was a pretty troublemaker as a teenager, I guess we'll put it that way. Kind of didn't have any direction in my life, and I did sports, I did well in school, but just really didn't apply myself and all that. Was a healthcare specialist, and I remember looking at the guy and I said, "Well, what's that?" And he was like, "Oh, you could work in a hospital or a clinic and you'd assist a doctor or nurse, or you'd be a medic and just do medical duties and blood pressures and take care of patients and
So, question,
this thing and that thing."
quick question. I do have a
Yeah,
quick question for you, so the audience too. So, this is education for me as well. So, the proper name then for, I mean, we can look it up nonetheless, but it's healthcare specialist, not like.
correct. I don't know if they've changed it, but when I originally joined, the MOS was a 91 whiskey and we were called healthcare specialists. I mean, everyone was just a medic, but at that time the official Army terminology for it was a healthcare specialist, because they I guess back in the day, way before my time, and maybe someone in the audience knows better, but from my time in service, from the older medics, there was a differentiation between combat medics and healthcare medics. So there was a difference, and there were two separate MOSs or a different identifier for those that were,
And
like line medics or combat medics.
you think that came out of primarily probably the Korean and the Vietnam War? You would probably.
I would say so,
Okay.
absolutely, because they needed that distinction between who was going to be on the line with the grunt. By choice, it was all circumstance, to be honest, and it just kind of fit. And one of the things that my mom said, after I chose the job of being a medic and I joined and went to AIT and had been deployed first, and I came home, and she just wouldn't stop speaking on how fitting of a job that was for me and my personality. Because throughout high school and just even younger, just as a kid growing up, I was always trying to help people and take care of people. And my mom said I was very compassionate, and just I had a way of making people feel comfortable. So when I chose the job of being a medic, she was like, I still think about it to this day, how perfect she saw it as a fit for me. But at the 11 months of me being on a Greyhound bus going to basic training, so and we get to Iraq, and our mission was totally different from what you and I experienced in Afghanistan. I hate to use this word, but it's the only way I can describe it. I was an extra medic, and our battalion's main focus in Iraq was medevacs, dust off. So we had crew chiefs, we had pilots, we had all the helicopters, we had
So
Black
audience,
Hawks.
not to cut you, just real quick.
Yeah,
Can you just said just really quickly, just what's a dust off, and especially when it comes with the
oh
medevac.
for sure. Yeah, medevac dust off basically is they started in Vietnam with these crazy Black Hawk pilots. The helicopter would come in and pick guys up in the middle
Well,
of the battle.
not to no, not to correct you, but I believe they were Hueys at that time in
You
Vietnam,
are
right?
correct. Absolutely. You are. And so, yeah, they, started off with Hueys, but it took one crazy pilot to be like, hey, we can go land this helicopter in the middle of a firefight in the jungle, and we can pick up the wounded, and we can get them out faster than they can load them up in a truck and drive through the jungle. And like I said, I used to know the history on it, and I don't want to misspeak on it, but it's a crazy story of these guys that started the whole medevac and dust off thing. And so to be in a unit, it was historical, I guess, in a way that I'm now in a medevac unit, and we've transitioned now. It's 2004, and we're in Black Hawks, but the whole job was to run these helicopters out to the middle of the battlefield and pick up the wounded and take them, you know, immediately to a hospital setting. We had caches,
And the
all
dust
those
off,
things.
is primarily like when we don't get into pop and smoke and all that, and we call 9 line medevac, but we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
educate some the audience that never served or does not know it.
Maybe 2 weeks, I think, at Bagram, getting acclimated to the country, and they're showing me around Bagram. We had a big aid station at Bagram to treat the rest of our guys in the unit. And from there, they really needed some medics to go to some of the more remote locations. And so the first location that I went to was Firebase Kutzbach, and that was, as we know now, it was right down the road from you guys. And at that time, it was 4th Brigade.
As well, who you were supporting?
Yeah, so I think I think most of you Pennsylvania guys know that there was an element of special forces. There was an American special force unit, and they were also with them was a Romanian special forces unit, and then we had a French um, legionnaires.
Yeah, not just the medic in combat, but combat medic. Um, we transitioned into Afghanistan, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So, go ahead. I'm getting excited because we've already talked about this. I know it's funny. It's gonna get funnier at
I
the
got you,
most
buddy.
hour. Yeah. So we're
This is the kind of this is what I like. We're just sitting down, shooting the shit. We'll talk about some shit, and if we
and
go
that's
off,
why I no don't take this the
we'll
wrong
reel
way,
it back
bro.
in.
Don't take this the wrong way, bro. That's why I asked you about your friends, and it's more casual. For me, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, of course, one day I'd like to monetize, but I do want to help people. But at the same time, I really, 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 I don't like somebody so I can't use the word try anymore. Attempt to do my best at
Yeah.
delivering a product that anyone could listen to and be like, "Oh wow, I never knew what a dust off was."
No, I get it, and here I'm trying to facilitate the best I can. So I'm not mad at all. Like, yeah, reel me in. Like, tell me to don't
Oh,
explain
you're good.
everything.
No, but
Ask me a question.
no, you're good. So we just start off like you're just you transition into from Bagram.
Yeah. So we all fly into Bagram when we deploy to Afghanistan, and I was one of the last medics from my unit to show up there. How do they shipped us over there?
And
And
now
I
you're
spent
based.
a
Not to interrupt
brief.
you, sir. Not to
Yeah,
interrupt you, Doc. You are based out of the 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Is that correct?
absolutely. Yep, that's where we
Okay.
came from. Yeah, and we get to Bagram, and I spent maybe 2 weeks, I think, at Bagram, getting acclimated to the country. And they're showing me around Bagram. We had a big aid station at Bagram to treat the rest of our guys in the unit. And from there, they really needed some medics to go to some of the more remote locations. And so the first location that I went to was Firebase Kutzbach, and that was, as we know now, it was right down the road from you guys. And at that time, it was 4th Brigade, Able Company, first of the 506 out of 101st. Which those of you that know Band of Brothers, it's a pretty infamous unit. And so I was proud to be with those guys. And I had missions out of Kutzbach, and I spent. I don't even remember.
What kind of missions were you all running? And do you mind me
You know, to
asking?
be, to be honest with you, there was a
Are
different.
you
I
allowed
was.
are you allowed to say who you were with as well? Who you were supporting?
Yeah, so I think I think most of you Pennsylvania guys know that there was an element of special forces. There was an American special force unit, and they were also with them was a Romanian special forces unit, and then we had a French um, legionnaires, which also are a historical famous group of guys from the French army. and we had Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police. And our main base was just us Americans and the small element, the Romanian special forces that were embedded. And so we took care of our own, and a lot of the special forces did a lot of things that we weren't privy to. There were guys leaving on ATVs in the middle of the night, going to get the bad guys in their sleep. Like we didn't mess around with that, and rarely. I think maybe once or twice that I can remember, they used us, 101st guys, as more of a blocking capability. So when you're trying to go get someone, you want to cordon off the area to make sure no one gets in or out. While the special force guys are doing their thing, and that they use us as support. Like I said, maybe once or twice, but we built a rapport with them. Obviously, they had a special forces medic with them that would come into our aid station and talk to us, teach us a few little things, just shoot it. And so it was a really cool opportunity to be that close to them, not with them by any means, but just next to them, close proximity to learn from them, to grow from them, and just be around these guys. They're pretty cool if you don't know.
It's just like, my friend that I interviewed, I told you about the episode. She's a medical doctor. She was in ICU during COVID. These guys that are special forces, and that's not taken away from you. And I'm going to get into, the medic that was, very close to me from Pennsylvania. You know who I'm talking about before you came to
But
Morales Frazier. These guys, they train, they'll give them like a sheep in the middle of like in the woods, and they'll like slit the sheep's throat, or cut it, and they'll have to like hike, ruck it for like 15 clicks, and it can't die.
yeah,
That's part of
yeah,
the training of SF, and some of the, I mean, I can't speak on the Navy SEALs, but I'm familiar. And then some of the guys get sent to, I've heard some guys, and I don't know if this is true, I can't validate some of and they're equivalent to PAs. Some of the,
absolutely. Special forces medics are very. I
and do you
mean,
mind, can you just go a little bit and touch on that?
yeah, for sure. So, and I don't know how to, as an active duty medic, we get our training, and then you get additional training before you deploy to combat. So, coming out of the 101st, they were very serious about that. We had a whole schoolhouse at Fort Campbell that's dedicated. It's actually named after a combat medic that received a Medal of Honor in Vietnam, RASCON. So the schoolhouse at Fort Campbell is the RASCON School of Combat Medicine, and we train out there. We do additional exercises. It's right next to the Urban Operation Training Center, and we'll sit there and run through every scenario that we can possibly think of. But of course, as you know from your time in the military, you can plan for everything, but it's never what actually happens. But the cool thing about training out of Fort Campbell was that they took the time, and that was the big difference between Iraq and Afghanistan for me. Is when I showed up to the 101st, they were, my my sergeant, had already been to Iraq multiple times, or already received a Purple Heart from being wounded, had a Bronze Star. So he had already done amazing things as a medic, as a younger medic, which is, the age I was at that time, when he was my age, he was, doing these things. So he took it very serious, and he took the time to get us every training that he could think of that would advance us, that not only us medically, but one of the main motto of the Army Medical Center and School is to conserve the fighting strength. That's the motto all of us medics in the Army live by. And that's our job, is to conserve the fighting strength. So our job is to keep the guys healthy enough to continue fighting. And if they're injured, we do what we can to keep them in the fight. Obviously, if they're too far injured, we keep them alive to get them home and get advanced treatment. And so Fort Campbell took the training of medics very serious. But to this day, I've never seen anything like it. And I'm proud of it. And I felt well trained. And I felt like they really spent the time and the money to get us any training in it. And not on par, like you spoke about the special forces, but we did something similar. We did a live tissue training, which I think I've been out long enough that I can speak about it now. Um, at the time, I was real hush hush. There were a lot of people mad about it, but yes, the sheep thing is real. And you know, when you're training a medic, a brand new medic, and you can have all the advanced mannequins and dummies that pump blood and simulate certain injuries. But until you're faced with a situation of an arterial bleed right in front of your face, you don't know how you're going to handle it or react to it. So they do everything they can. So the live tissue with the sheep is they put you in those situations, and where there's a real living thing in front of you, and there's a heartbeat, and there's real blood, and your sole job is keep that heart beating and to keep that patient. For all intents and purposes, when I was in this training, they were patients. They were not animals. They were not sheep. They weren't anything. They were our patients, and they were alive. And our job was to keep them alive. And to me, in my opinion, there's no better training than that. Obviously, you can't take real humans and do things to them, simulate to medics training. That's not allowed. So that the thing that the Army came up with the sheeps, and I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, you take me, for example. I'd already been to Iraq and had seen a few things here and there, nothing crazy, but I'd been around. And then you take, say, a brand new medic that was fresh from AIT, that just got to the 101st, getting ready to go to Afghanistan, and he's seen nothing. Then you put him in this training, and you really get them, that experience and how they react. And it's all a personal thing. Everybody reacts to everything differently, and a million people could be medics in the Army, but out of those million, there's only a handful that are really cut out to be a medic, if that makes sense to you.
You find out about this fire base up the road called Morales Frazier, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
Now
yeah.
we're gonna get into it, and I want to make a couple points there.
Sure.
You find out that there's some guys up the road, and now what's the first initial thing you're doing? You did a great job. You're a Kuzba, you're working SF dudes, you're doing other things, you're doing that. What's the first thing that you hear about Morales Frazier, and who are they, and what are they doing there, or what are they doing outside of there?
Yeah, so one of my very first experiences that I can remember and talk about is there was a really big firefight that you guys from Morales Frazier were involved in. And meanwhile, I'm at my base at Kutzbach with the 101st, and there's these other group of guys that we didn't know at the time that's in a really big firefight, and ended up needing some assistance. I remember the special forces guys went out. There's a group of
That
our
that was
guys.
that was our first. Not to cut you. I mean, that's why I want to. I hope you don't mind me talking to you about this too, right? Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
That was the one the first ones that we really got into, the big one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
and in my experience, I'm sitting at that base, and I'm waiting around basically for a call that they need a medic. And so my day is kind of slow, and that particular day, at the radio just going off, guys are running back and forth from the talk at our base. SF came in, they got some supplies. One of the other medics from 101st, from 4th Brigade, came in and got some supplies. And then next thing we knew, there's a group of guys from a base down the road that's in a really bad firefight. They have a couple wounded. There's a couple Afghan army or police, whoever you guys were with. They have some KIA and wounded on those forces. There's a couple Americans that were wounded, and so all of a sudden it was a real tizzy at our base, scrambling. That quick reaction force to get guys out there and to help with the fight. And I didn't go out to that firefight. All I remember is that an element on my base left and went out, and then a group of guys came back. And it just so happened there was quite a few of the Pennsylvania National Guard guys that came back. And the medic, the special forces medic, was out there responding to that big firefight. And, he came back and there were some wounded, and we had to call in medevacs, calling those helicopters to get the American and coalition forces medevac to Bagram to get them better treatment. And so that was really, the tizzy, combat is chaos, man. And everything was going 100 different directions. And when the dust all settled, it turned out that there was and I don't even, at this point, I don't think the 101st knew that it was a National Guard unit. There was an element of, infantry guys down the road that was in this valley that was on the other side. So, I mean, you and I know, but to give the listener a breakdown real quick, there are two bases and basically the finger of a mountain. So just a piece of a mountain stuck out.
And Doc, real break down what to the audience the difference between a fire base and a base, like a Bagram or
that's a good
point, Can you please, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. So when I say fire base, the very first base I was at in Kutzbach, we had a company. I want to say, you correct me if I'm wrong, roughly 100 and something soldiers. Company breaks down into
100, 120, and about 4 platoons.
Okay. So so at the first base we had a company, and we were a bigger element. Like I said, we had the American forces, which was a company of us. We had the small special forces group. There might have been a dozen of them, if that. A small Romanian special forces might have been six, seven of them.
You had different type of attachments that were connected at Kutzbach.
Yeah. So the base at Kutzbach was, when I say bigger, it was bigger than Morales Frazier. We had more people, we had more support, we had more staff, we had the commo, the cooks, the mechanics, we had different things, but we were still a very small element. A company is a very small element of the military to be out at a small base by themselves. So that's when we say fire base, it's a remote base. And it's same as Vietnam. Fire bases were at the top of mountains. They were remote, they were small, and they were the team that was responsible for everything in a very small vicinity. Whereas, a larger base is obviously covers a larger area and has way more troops and support for those operations. These fire bases are just basically small elements of infantry going out into a small area and doing their job. And so at Kutzbach, like I said, a company, 100, 120 soldiers, maybe 150 after you count in the support personnel, cooks, mechanics, all that. And so after that initial firefight where the Pennsylvania National Guard had really been in the thick of it and had been tied down. And when I say tied down, I mean, the bullets are flying, they're pinned down, they can't really maneuver, they need help. So the guys from our base went out. Some guys got hurt, this, that, and the other thing, that come back. And it took a day or two later, and it's not, it's one of those, it's a really weird story because I'm telling you this from my active duty perspective, being with the 101st. And so all we knew was that you guys down the road after that firefight, one of our 101st commanders, I think our battalion commander, came out to visit Kutzbach, and we had recently suffered a casualty ourselves. And so he came out to visit, and then, was really curious about the guys down the road. And from what I remember, our colonel, when I say our colonel, the 101st colonel, with, whatever element he had, drove, the 20, 30 minutes, however long that drive was, to Morales Frazier and to visit, what turned out to be you guys. And all I remember is that when he came back to the base, the Kutzbach, that he spoke about coming across guys that were wearing shorts, sandals, and had beards and T-shirts, and and obviously he had known that you had been in this big firefight and all these things. And so in his eyes, the guys down the road were some National Guard Special Forces unit. because who else would be in beards and sandals and shorts and, going out doing these kind of missions, getting into firefights and taking on wounded and, eliminating the bad guy, or, doing all that, driving the bad guy out of the valley. And so it became at Kutzbach, it became a thing of folklore. Is that there's this other special forces unit down the road, and they're kicking ass and taking names. And, as the days went on, I remember we had another visit, and I don't remember if it was a battalion commander again or the brigade commander, or someone else from 4th Brigade of 101st. So many years have passed, but there was another important person that came out to Kutzbach, and I remember that day very specifically because walking around the base on a daily basis, we had to be in some type of uniform, be it our PT physical training uniform, or we had to have our boots and our camo pants and a t-shirt. We had to have our rifle and our vest and our helmet nearby in case something happened. And this particular day, we had to put on our vest and we had to put on our helmets and we had to put on our eye protection and our gloves. And I mean, we had to dress to the nines. And so they came out, and there were some meetings with the officers of units. And I'll never forget, after that meeting, it took maybe 2 days. And there was, a little buzz around the fire base. Maybe these aren't special forces guys. And next thing I know, my sergeant is telling me I need to pack my duffel and my rucksack and fill my aid bag as much as I can. And I'm going to that base down the road, and that it's a National Guard unit, and they have no support with them whatsoever. And at the time, coming from Kutzbach, I heard, we got a platoon of guys, 30 guys, and there's only one medic. And, I spoke on the phone about it before, but that's unheard of. Basically when you're active duty in the military and you're assigned to an infantry unit, so you become a line medic, you almost have, there's generally 2 medics per platoon, and you split duties. But if you're in a situation like we were in Afghanistan, they up those numbers, and it's almost 1 medic per squad. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's what's ideal. And I mean, at the very least, you have 2 to 3 medics for 1 platoon of 30 guys, because you can only handle so many people and so many missions, and before us medics get run ragged. So when we heard that there was a whole platoon of guys down the road and they had 1 medic, and we're thinking about that firefight and all the other things you guys had done that we didn't even know about at that time. And it was kind of, as an active duty soldier, it was absolutely mind blowing to me that you had 1. And huge kudos to Doc Jarrett. We didn't really talk much about what he did before I showed up. I just know that he was grateful when myself and another medic, Michael Book, showed up to Morales Frazier to kind of alleviate some of the stress he was getting.
I remember when you arrived with
Oh,
Michael Bro. I remember that. It
yeah,
was like
that was
it was a big relief for a lot of us because of the type of missions we were running, and I can say I'm close to Doc. You understand what I'm saying? And you and I spoke about that, right? And I know
yeah, absolutely.
he's got a family back at home, and dude, like, and this isn't, everybody does, but dude, like, he just, I don't, not only was he doing missions 2 or 3, we were, 2 a day we were going out on, you know what I mean, with different squads. He was dealing with triage with the kids that you and I spoke about, all the landmines. You understand, the
Right.
kids of the
Yeah.
Afghan.
It's a tough job. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I mean, Doc Jarrett can speak about it. It's being a medic is no easy task, and especially a medic in combat. Like I said, you're there to treat obviously your American and coalition troops, and you also, we take an oath, and we have to treat the enemy that are wounded by our actions, and we have to treat civilians that are wounded by our actions. And I remember a lot of my time at Kutzbach was spent treating civilian casualties. They would drive up to the base in a van with 2 2 civilians that were injured by some action that we had taken. Um, just a casualty of war, I guess, the collateral. And but again, it's our job, it's our responsibility to take care of them as well. And they would come in, and we would treat them. And there's pictures on my Facebook of me treating civilians and due to combat. It's ugly. We do everything we could. We take care of them at Kutzbach, and then we put them on a medevac helicopter and send them to Bagram to get further treatment. And eventually, hopefully they'd make it back to their village and everything would be fine. But it's a
Right.
responsibility that when you're in that situation, you take care of everyone, good or bad.
So I remember you speaking, and I don't know if you can confirm this. And we talked about it before, and we talked about it again today, and I think yesterday. Excuse me,
No,
101st.
so yeah, as we talked about it, it was a weird deployment. So we had one brigade. There's four brigades that make up the 101st, and 4th Brigade deployed to Afghanistan along with the division headquarters, who is in charge of. They were the major command and control for our area in Afghanistan, and so through everything that had happened in that major firefight that we just talked about, um, it basically made it up to the commander of the 101st. And that's when people, at that high level, they're not there in the shit, so to speak. And they don't know what's really going on the ground. They get the reports and they, see the footage and all that. But they don't know. They're not there. But it makes the information makes it all the way up the chain. And so it became a point that we realized that this unit down the road, we had no idea who they were. And after that first initial visit, we thought they were a National Guard Special Forces unit. And there were just no questions about it because, like I said, you guys were, kicking in doors and getting the bad guys and just going out on missions, doing your thing. And yeah, you guys ran around base and let your face hair grow and you're running around in shorts and sandals on the base. But when it came down, came time to do work, you guys were out there doing what needed to be done. So from that high level, at the general on down, we realized there was a unit that was out here doing awesome things that literally had no support. Like I just said, you had the one medic, Doc Garrett, for you guys. You didn't have any cooks. You didn't have any mechanics. You didn't have any commo guys. You didn't have any intel. You didn't have any kind of little command
Well,
and
we well we
control.
what we had what we had that company commander. He had a ranger tab, the one I'm referring to, right?
Right.
And we had support, but to your point, we didn't. I remember there's months that we didn't have a cook. We had just 8 MREs, and then what I'm speaking about. I think that might have been right
Yeah.
before you came over. When we got out to that base, I told you that. That's the thing with the guard, and a lot of people, that's what we're gonna get into, and I just appreciate you doing that because a lot of guys that will listen to this that it goes into the active duty thing and National Guard, but we got out there, there was no power, and then we had that company commander that basically was our, we got attached to the 101st, right?
Right.
And
Well,
we had
actually, first to 82nd.
well, no, they ripped out. We got attached to
Right.
82nd, but then they ripped out, and then so that company commander, the one the Rangers have, he actually was the commander of that. Of we even though we actually had our own, we did our own thing, but he was part, and then we had the talk that was set up eventually, and then there was we had elements from the 101st once we up to your point officially got attached.
Right.
We had, but
Because
never,
and that's
but we
like
didn't get But to your point, we didn't get cooks, and we did our own stuff. That we cooked our own vehicles. We did our own PMCS. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
We did everything. We didn't have our own cook. We finally got one. It took time. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
But I mean, like to your point, we did have support, but it was like to run the talk and to run the missions, and that's what I wanted to bring up the point from the division commander from the 101st because
yeah.
it
I
makes sense of
spoke
what you're saying.
briefly about it. Yeah, yeah. It was one of those things that, as from the perspective of an active duty soldier, we had our mission at Kutzbach, and to be honest with you, I don't think our mission was that involved as to what you guys were doing on the other side of the mountain in your AO. And so when we realized who you guys were and what you had been doing and were doing, we were all like, holy crap, like how are these guys doing this day in and day out with little to no support? Meanwhile, I'm still at a small base, but I have, we had everything. We had the food, we had, water, we had uh parts for vehicles,
And the main thing, excuse me, one of the main thing you guys had is, I believe,
in the active duty, especially the 101st, it was nothing for us to call an air support. It was, if someone got into something, it was nothing to get on the radio and call in an Apache or a Kiowa or, a Black Hawk for medevac. And it was just easy because that's what the 101st is known for, is their air assets. And to think about you guys down the road, in a handful of trucks that you're maintaining yourself and you're feeding yourself, and where the heck were you guys getting your ammo to do all of this? Meanwhile, we're getting a helicopter every 2 or 3 days of food and water and ammo and basic necessities. But you guys, and not to drag this out, but one of the things I talked about with another guy from your unit, Solomon, that I think when you showed up to Afghanistan, your unit in particular, it was a really weird time because the 82nd was the major command and control, and they were getting ready to head out the
I'll
door.
tell you the story real quick.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, and this one is I'm glad that we're talking about it, so I can share this, because I usually don't share this on any episodes. I've heard about it before when Army units fly out, redeploy right back home.
Right. Yep.
And I've heard the craziest for me is that they fly into either Ramstein or Frankfurt, right, in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
After doing a deployment for 12 months, 14, 15 months, right? And then they get told they got to go back for another 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
So for us, we trained to do a PRT mission in Fort Bragg with Air Force and Navy assets, right? To Prevention Reconstruction Team, the PRT mission, right? To help them rebuild schools, roads, and what have you.
Yep. Build wells and have fresh water.
We walked off the plane when we landed in Bagram of February, March of 2000 and was that 2008?
2008, yeah.
And a first sergeant from the 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg came up to a colonel that we trained with from the Air Force and explained to him that this unit of National Guard out of Pennsylvania that you've been training with the last 2 months at Fort Bragg, they're no longer your PSD element. That's personal security detail.
Yeah.
They're going out to Capisa Province, to Gob Valley, Morales Frazier. Doc, thank you so much, sir. That was amazing. For me, I just want to say thank you for definitely, just basically breaking that down and letting the audience that doesn't have an understanding or doesn't know anybody in the military that we're all the same, we all bleed the same. So like I said, I really do appreciate that. Shout out to everybody in the Pennsylvania and all the Guard and all the branches in the military. But no, that was by far one of the best I've ever heard in terms of not even just my podcast or All Emotion, excuse me, but I just want to say thank you, Doc, for really being transparent and vulnerable and really breaking that down. So again, we're all the major platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Google, Apple. Stay tuned for today. We have part 2. Take care and be safe. This is Jake from All Motion.